As you know, it's Microbial Pursuit, and the idea is revising the unit content while you are playing.
So we did a previous session in a workshop where we created some revision questions, multiple choice, true or false, based on our lecture content and our notes. And then we've turned it into a game. So we've been asking those questions and moving around like a Trivial Pursuit, but Microbial Pursuit.
The workshop is composed of 2 different sessions, and they are 1 hour long. The groups are color-coded, and each color are assigned a specific lectures. We have all the handouts from the lectures. I organized them in 6 groups, 6 different colors. So they have all that information in Blackboard. Well, very easy to reach. When they do the questions and answers, they use a template, and that is uploaded into a Padlet. From there, I organize all the questions. I check there are no duplication. And then that is collected in a PowerPoint that will be also accessible in the Blackboard. So in the second session, I bring the board games, I bring the pieces, the wedges, the holders, the dice, the cards. Each group have a set of those pieces. The students play using their own questions and their own answers, also in groups.
Through this game, especially making the questions as well, you had to sort of think back to the lectures and remember, stuff that we learned. So it's definitely a good way of consolidating what we already knew, like bringing it back to our short-term memory.
Also to research into the lectures that you're doing and maybe go a bit further if you had to look up things to make the questions, to make sure that you were right and all that kind of thing. Just helps you be a bit more invested in what you're actually learning in the content of your work. So I think that was really nice.
My role is actually quite active. I'm facilitating the session, but I am involved in what is happening in the room. So on one hand, I really want them to see they are supported by me, by being around and be approachable. On another hand, I don't want to be intervening in the game because I want to give them freedom to play the game and to revise as they wish. So it's a kind of being there, but available, but also be a little bit laid back to give them the freedom that they need to, to explore those connections with other students.
I think it's really helped in terms of creating episodic memories. So when I sit in that exam, I'll remember the answer to the question because I'll remember, oh, so-and-so was sat opposite me playing it and laughing about it. That was the answer to the green question. It's a different way, and I'm associating the memory of playing the game with that content. So when I come into the exam, I'll think, oh, the game.
In my opinion, their questions tend to be harder than ours. I don't know, they work in groups and they're looking for which question are we going to do. It's a kind of complicity that we are going to ask this to the students. I think the benefit is great because they are collaborating, they are looking for that information through the handouts. They remember what the lecturer has said during the lectures, and that you can see that they are collaborating, saying, can we do a multiple choice question with this? Can we do true and false with that information?
I think the part I enjoyed the most was winning. Also just answering the questions with and being social as well with the rest of my course mates.
It can be quite isolating coming to uni in your first year, and group activities really help you to get to know people.
There is this big fear of failure that actually is diluted because they feel in an environment that is relaxed and they can do this kind of failure because it doesn't matter. And with the failure comes also the learning because someone will tell you what is the correct answer.
I think it's kind of hard from a kind of social and maybe even just a competitive aspect at a highly ranked school in a really competitive course to be vulnerable at the beginning, to say what you think might be the answers, and you might be wrong and you might not know and you might be uncertain, and to have those conversations could be hard at first. But definitely getting into it and being able to communicate and say that, hey, nobody knows everything and we're all just learning from each other, it's hard at first, but once you start having the conversations, it becomes a lot easier.
I think that we are able to create a relaxed environment, because when we are there, we are very flexible with the rules, so we don't push them to do just a game or just to revise. We give them the space that they need to make connection, to start talking about something that is not related to the unit, but that per se makes the environment much more amicable, more friendly. And I also know that there are students that might not feel comfortable in that situation. There are students that prefer to work individually, but they are actually happy being surrounded by other students. That is fine as well. When they play the game, if there are students that don't really want to play individually because they feel that they are spotlighted, they can play in pairs, or they can play half of the group against the other half of the group. The activity is a good representation that what is happening outside of the classroom. So they will need to work in collaboration with other students, with other members of the staff, with other colleagues. So it's very good that they start very early during the degree to be able to collaborate, to discuss in groups.
To be willing to open up and say what you think, and have feedback and have criticism and analyze things together. I think that's such an important part of like critical thinking that should be regularly a part of our learning process.
I think that for students that are not familiar with active learning, the first thing that we should do is, when we explain the activity, is to give them the aims of the activity and the skills that they can acquire from doing those tasks. I think that any activity that makes the student engaged will make everything easier. So any lecturer can, any academic can use learning that is playful and is active. And definitely it's fun for us as well, not just for the students, but for us as an academics.
It's interactive, it's fun, it's challenging, and it forces also critical analysis. You had to research, had to find questions for yourselves, you had to think about it, you had to put in more effort than to just do questions online or just go over your lectures. And I think that was really important. Even just playing with and introducing different ways of teaching and learning and interacting is so important. I think this was a really good way of doing that, and getting to meet your course mates and even just have more intimate sessions with your professors and other academics who are interested in how you learn and how you teach and how we educate. So I think that was really nice, and I definitely think it's something that should be more practiced and invested in.